Hi gang, Rob here. It is the evening of 30 April 2013, and tonight we have a knife review, and I'm going to try to make it a pretty comprehensive knife review. And frankly, this is one of the most interesting I've ever prepared for. The knife we have to look at tonight is a KLH backpacker. It is a beautiful, small, fixed blade. Let's take a good look at it as we roll into the review. See if I can get a good up-close focus on this bad boy. Would you look at that? Beautiful knife, sporting a beautiful edge. If you've been watching, you recognize this knife. This one belongs to my YouTube buddy and contest winner, Mr. 1MOA. And the reason I wanted to hang on to this an extra day to review it is because I just have a lot of respect for this knife. And sort of in turn, respect for the guy who made it, whom I've never met. Actually had never experienced any of his work before. Gentleman's name is Kevin Hoffman, proprietor of KLH Knives, apparently out of Florida these days, given the logo on the blade tang. Okay, let's get into it. First, I'm going to give you sort of the basics on this knife, and then talk a little bit about Kevin and my research on him. Pretty interesting story as knife makers go. But here's what we have, guys. We have a knife that is about 8 5/8 inches long in overall length. Blade length is 4.5 inches. Now Kevin lists it at 4 inches on his website, and I believe that's cutting edge by my measurement from here to here. The length of the handle is 4 1/8 inches. The weight on this knife, solid little knife that it is, 4.5 ounces. With sheath, 6.4 ounces, guys. You know, we look at folders, very few of them have 4.5-inch blades with 4 full inches of cutting edge, and if we do find one that long, finding one that comes in that 6-ounce range is pretty rare. Especially folders that are built remotely as heavy as this little fixed blade. It's a pretty amazing little package. It's so carryable and so light and so nimble. Pretty amazing little knife. The scales on this guy are, well, I'm sorry, all knives are female. The scales on this girl are very nicely contoured and polished linen micarta. I believe the lanyard tube is probably stainless steel. The rivets appear to be nickel silver. The stock thickness I believe to be 1/8 of an inch. Of course, it is a full tang design. And the steel choice is ATS 34. ATS 34, some of you probably know, is the Japanese equivalent of 154 cm. Actually, the original formulation. 154 cm was an American steel, basically, that copied ATS 34 in its chemistry and makeup. One interesting feature of the knife, no, this was not a runaway drill. This little divot in the micarta which is a little puzzling at first glance, actually serves a purpose. If you notice, the sheath, which is Kydex and very nicely made, has a little button protruding from the back guard, which, guess what, snaps into that little divot, which is a pretty cool idea because retention would be difficult. There's no finger guard or ricasso or any natural feature of the knife to snap into a Kydex sheath for retention. So that divot just does a great job. And does it work? You bet it does. Excellent retention, not a rattle. Now the sheath is a little different from what we're used to seeing. It doesn't have the grommet type rivets that have large holes in them that you can attach tech locks to, or a large cord like paracord to lash the sheath to anything. The drain hole looks like it doesn't have a drain hole until you look at the back, and there's one there, right there above this little section of webbing with a stainless steel ring attached. Not sure what the intended purpose of that rectangular ring is. The knife's not really long enough to want to lash it to your leg. I guess it could serve as a tie-down point if you were attaching it to a piece of gear instead of wearing it on your belt. The belt loop is attached by rivets to the Kydex. I believe it'll accommodate a 1 3/4 inch belt. Just a very nicely made sheath, very light, very minimal, and fits the knife perfectly. I don't know what more you could really ask. I suppose if it were more modern, it might be made a little differently with maybe some, an attachment point for a tech lock and ability to carry vertically or horizontally. It's so unobtrusive, though, I can't imagine it would get in the way very much in a vertical carry, and that's what you get with this. Let's look at the knife aesthetically. It is beautiful, and it's just so classic. It's just it's a robust stock, nice thick spine, beautifully done hollow grind that does thicken just ever so slightly at the tip. Not super thin behind the edge. Haven't measured it, but my manual caliper tells me 40 thousandths maybe. And as we move out to the tip, maybe 50. Which, the hollow grind isn't super drastic or deep. So I believe the knife will be an excellent slicer. You guys have already seen what it does to phone book paper. If you haven't seen, go back and watch my contest update video I did yesterday. We're not going to do that again. Now, the name of this knife is Backpacker. And frankly, given the weight, the strength, the versatility, the ergonomics, the materials used, Backpacker works for me. What a great little camp knife this would be. Whether you're chopping up vegetables for your stew, heck, even skinning an animal, making feather sticks, splitting kindling. This is not a knife I'd be bashful about batoning on a piece of wood of the right thickness. Not bashful at all. It's a strong little son of a gun. Not going to rust. Would it be a good potato peeler? No, I think it might. There's just not too much this knife won't do. Of course, size notwithstanding, it is only a 4.5 inch long blade with 4 inches of cutting edge, but wow, I think it would excel in everything. So how does this knife come to be? What brings this out of a man's brain? Well, let's look at the man a little bit, and I've been doing a little reading over the last couple of days about Kevin Hoffman, owner of KLH Knives. Pretty neat story as knife makers go. to hear him tell it. Well, I read it in his bio on his website, and I will list his website in the description. Back in 1977, while he was in college, he was a young kid who loved knives and decided he would try to start making them. And he was essentially self-taught. Did his undergraduate work at Western Illinois University. Got a bachelor's degree with a concentration in jewelry and metal arts. Went on to the University of Iowa. Got a master's degree in jewelry and metal arts. Moved to Kansas City, where every year there's a rather significant knife show. Decided he was going to make knife making a full-time career. Borrowed $500 and opened up shop. So for the last 30 years or so, that's what Kevin Hoffman does. And boy, what a student of the knife art he is. Also in this day and age, he's a well-regarded and published author in knife-making circles, and he's on the board of directors of the Knife Makers Guild. An award-winning knife maker I had never heard of, and I'm kind of embarrassed by that. I really would like to meet and talk to this guy. I did send him an email sort of asking him for some background as I got ready to work on this knife. Evidently, he hasn't had time to respond to me yet, but I hope he will. I'd kind of like to pick his brain a little bit. Isn't it kind of cool? This knife, and you can find it on Kevin's website. He still makes this model, and I believe this one to be about 20 years old. According to Mr. 1 MOA, if my memory serves, his dad's been gone for about 10 years, and he thinks his dad had the knife for about 10 years before that. So that would place us in the mid-90s, and when you look at the one on his website today, in 2013, it looks like the same knife, and frankly, if you'd have found this in your grandpa's safe deposit box and knew that he bought it in 1950, it might have looked exactly the same. Some designs just work. I mean, the way the handle fits your hand, one finger groove for your index finger, which is the finger that you need to have a groove for. The rest of the hand falls pretty naturally on the handle. I have medium to large hands, and all four of my fingers fit in this grip. If you had hands that were a little larger and you had to hang a finger over, you'd still have good control of the blade. What do you guys think of the construction of this little full tang beauty? If your eyes didn't see the line between the tang and the micarta scales, your finger couldn't find it. Just amazing. And I don't know that most of us appreciate how hard that is to do. You have a material in the micarta that's pretty soft, a little bit harder nickel silver, and very hard stainless steel, and he's got these all sanded in perfectly matching fashion. It's just great. One thing I like about this custom knife, and it is a custom knife, is that it's a working knife. So many of our custom makers in this day and age make these cartoonish freak blades that are overly thick, that look really tough but have no practical use. They look like they should be on, some video game. They weigh way too much for what they do. This knife is built with a purpose, and that purpose is to cut. It's been an honor to be able to work on it. It's been an honor to be able to research its origins. And I'm glad to be a part of the continued life of this heirloom in the family of Mr. 1 MOA. Hope you've enjoyed looking at it, fellas, because it is something to look at. That's all we have for tonight. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Night, guys.